Hello everyone, and welcome to my Young and the Restless official 24 channel. Bombshell doesn't even begin to describe the chaos that rips through Genoa City as Adam Newman finds himself staring straight into the abyss, his life suddenly hanging by a thread thanks to Jack Abbott's ruthless counterattack, a move so calculated and so personal that even Victor Newman is shaken to his core, because this is no longer about business, revenge, or old grudges, it's about survival, and for the first time in a long time, Adam is the one being hunted, the walls closing in as Jack executes a devastating strike designed not just to ruin Adam, but to erase him completely, and it all explodes on a day when secrets collide, confessions surface, and the truth becomes a weapon capable of killing more than just reputations. Jack, fueled by months of simmering rage, betrayal, and humiliation, finally snaps, unleashing a counterattack that blindsides Adam from every direction, freezing assets, exposing damaging evidence, and quietly setting forces in motion that put Adam directly in harm's way, because Jack doesn't just want Adam to lose, he wants him broken, isolated, and defenseless, and Adam feels it instantly, the ground shifting beneath his feet as allies vanish, phones go silent, and whispers spread that he's become a marked man. Rumors swirl that Jack's move isn't merely legal or corporate but something darker, something far more dangerous. As Adam begins to sense that his life itself may be the ultimate price of this vendetta, a realization that hits with bone-chilling clarity when a near-fatal incident rattles him to the core, making it impossible to ignore that this counterattack may have crossed into deadly territory. Victor Newman, watching the disaster unfold, is pushed into an unthinkable position, because for all his past cruelty toward his son, for all the times he's cast Adam aside, he cannot stand by and watch him be destroyed. And so the Titan of Genoa City does the unthinkable, he begs, swallowing his pride and confronting Jack not as a rival, but as a desperate father pleading for mercy, his voice heavy with fear as he warns Jack that this path leads only to irreversible bloodshed, that whatever Adam has done does not warrant a death sentence, but Jack, consumed by fury, is unmoved, his eyes cold as he reminds Victor of every lie, every betrayal, every life Adam has scorched along the way, insisting that this is justice finally being served. As if the stakes weren't already lethal, Nicky Newman steps forward with a confession that threatens to upend everything, a raw, emotional admission that could shift the balance of power if anyone is willing to believe her, because Nicky reveals a truth buried deep in the past, a secret that implicates Jack and reframes Adam's actions in a startling new light, and for a brief moment, it seems as though her words might stop the bloodshed, that her confession could be the key to pulling Adam back from the edge. But Adam isn't waiting quietly for salvation, he's fighting back with evidence of his own, proof so damning that it directly contradicts Nicky's version of events, exposing holes in her story and raising terrifying questions about who is really telling the truth and who is manipulating the narrative to save themselves. The clash between Nicky's confession and Adam's evidence becomes a ticking time bomb, splitting Genoa City down the middle as loyalties fracture and everyone is forced to choose which truth they're willing to stand behind. And as the battle rages, Adam grows increasingly paranoid, sleeping with one eye open, sensing danger in every shadow, because Jack's revenge isn't loud or reckless, it's surgical, calculated to leave Adam vulnerable at the worst possible moment, and that moment comes when Adam realizes he's being followed, watched, stalked, the fear clawing at him as he understands that Jack's counterattack has unleashed forces he can no longer control. Victor, frantic and guilt-ridden, makes his desperate plea public, confronting Jack in a charged showdown that leaves witnesses stunned as the mighty Newman patriarch begs his greatest enemy to stop, admitting his own failures as a father, confessing that Adam has already paid a terrible price for his mistakes, and insisting that killing him, directly or indirectly, will only destroy everyone involved. But Jack, backed into a corner by his own rage, refuses to stand down, convinced that Adam will never stop unless he's completely annihilated. Meanwhile, Nicky's confession threatens to unravel her marriage, her family, and her standing in Genoa City, as Victor struggles to reconcile her words with the evidence Adam has presented, torn between protecting his wife and saving his son, a conflict that leaves him more vulnerable than ever before, because for once, Victor can't control the outcome, and that terrifies him. Adam, sensing that time is running out, confronts Jack directly, a volatile encounter crackling with hatred and unresolved history, as Adam accuses Jack of crossing a line that can never be uncrossed, while Jack coldly warns him that this is what happens when you make too many enemies, their exchange dripping with menace as it becomes painfully clear that neither man is willing to back down, even if it means someone doesn't walk away alive. The tension reaches a breaking point when a shocking incident leaves Adam seriously injured, the result of a chain reaction set off by Jack's counterattack. And suddenly the question is no longer theoretical. Adam's life truly is in danger, and the consequences of this war are devastatingly real, sending Victor into full-blown crisis mode as he races against time to stop the bleeding, both literally and figuratively. Hospital corridors buzz with whispers as Nikki's confession is re-examined, Adam's evidence scrutinized, and Jack's role questioned by those who once stood firmly at his side, because if Adam dies, the fallout will be catastrophic, legally, morally, and emotionally, and everyone knows it. Yet even as Adam fights to survive, the battle of truths continues, Nikki standing by her confession despite mounting pressure, Adam refusing to surrender his evidence, and Victor caught in the middle, forced to confront the possibility that his family may be destroyed no matter which side prevails. Jack, isolated by his obsession, begins to realize that his revenge has spiraled beyond his control, but pride and fury keep him moving forward, unable to stop even as the cost becomes horrifyingly clear. In the end, Genoa City is left holding its breath, as Adam's fate hangs in the balance. Victor's desperate plea echoes unanswered, and the clash between confession and evidence threatens to expose secrets that could tear the city apart forever, because in this deadly game of payback and power, no one emerges unscathed, and the question looming over everyone is chillingly simple: will Jack's revenge claim Adam's life, or will the truth, however ugly, finally force mercy to prevail before it's too late? The nightmare only deepens as the hours crawl by, because Adam's brush with death doesn't slow Jack Abbott down, it hardens him, turning his calculated vengeance into something colder and more unforgiving, and as Adam lies battered and vulnerable, every breath a reminder of how close he came to not breathing at all, the reality settles in across Genoa City that this war has crossed a line that can never be erased, with Victor Newman pacing like a caged animal, rage and terror warring inside him. As he realizes that for all his power, money, and influence, he may not be able to save his son from the consequences of this blood-soaked feud, doctors issue guarded updates, whispers ripple through hospital corridors, and allies hover uneasily, knowing that if Adam survives, nothing will ever be the same again, because Jack's counterattack has fundamentally altered the balance of power, and even survival may come at an unbearable cost. Nikki, racked with guilt, clings to her confession as if it's the only thing tethering her to sanity, insisting that the truth, her truth, must matter, that it must be enough to stop this madness. But the deeper investigators dig, the more complicated everything becomes, as Adam's evidence refuses to disappear, painting a picture that suggests Nikki's admission may be only part of a much darker, more tangled story, one that implicates multiple players and exposes layers of deception stretching back years. Victor, torn apart by doubt, begins to wonder whether the woman he loves is protecting the family or protecting herself, and that question poisons every interaction between them, because if Nikki's confession collapses under scrutiny, then Adam's credibility rises, and with it, the horrifying possibility that Jack has been waging a war based on lies. Jack, meanwhile, doubles down, publicly framing Adam as a menace whose removal is necessary for the safety of everyone in Genoa City, delivering icy statements that sound dangerously close to justifying the unthinkable. And while some rally behind him, convinced that Adam has finally gone too far, others recoil, unsettled by the relentless obsession driving Jack forward, whispering that revenge has twisted him into something unrecognizable. As Adam regains consciousness, his first instinct isn't relief, it's fear, because he knows Jack isn't finished, and he knows that the man pulling the strings has resources and reach that extend far beyond boardrooms and courtrooms, leaving Adam feeling exposed, hunted, and acutely aware that one wrong move could be his last. Victor increases security, surrounds Adam with protection, and makes frantic calls to neutralize threats, but even he senses that this isn't something brute force can solve, because the real danger lies in the truth still buried beneath layers of betrayal, and until it's unearthed, Adam will never be safe. Nikki's confession is replayed again and again, dissected by lawyers, investigators, and enemies eager to poke holes in her story, and when inconsistencies begin to surface, tiny fractures at first, then widening cracks, panic sets in, because if Nicky's version collapses, Jack's justification for his counterattack evaporates, leaving him exposed to devastating legal and moral repercussions, yet Jack refuses to retreat, convinced that Adam's evidence is forged, manipulated, or twisted, and he vows to destroy it piece by piece, no matter how much blood ends up on his hands. The tension reaches another boiling point when Adam, weak but defiant, demands a face-to-face confrontation, not with Jack, but with Nicky, insisting that only by looking each other in the eye can the truth finally come out, and when they meet, the air crackles with raw emotion as Nicky's resolve falters under Adam's relentless questions, her voice trembling as she insists she's telling the truth, even as Adam produces documentation that contradicts her timeline, forces her to confront moments she's either forgotten or deliberately erased, and the scene leaves witnesses shaken, because it's clear that someone is lying, and the consequences of that lie have already nearly killed a man. Victor watches this unraveling in horror, realizing that his desperate plea for mercy may have come too late, that his silence and manipulation over the years helped create this monster of mutual destruction, and for the first time, he considers a radical move, sacrificing his own power, his own pride, if it means ending the war and saving his son's life. Jack senses the shift and grows even more dangerous, because desperation fuels him now, and he launches another aggressive strike designed to strip Adam of credibility entirely, leaking damaging narratives to the press, pressuring associates to turn on him, and pushing Adam further into isolation, hoping to make his survival meaningless even if he escapes death. Adam, cornered and furious, decides he won't go quietly, and he releases a portion of his evidence publicly. A calculated risk that detonates across Genoa City like a bomb, implicating Jack in actions that suggest his counterattack may have crossed legal and ethical boundaries long before Adam ever struck back, and suddenly the hunter becomes the hunted, as authorities begin asking Jack uncomfortable questions and former allies distance themselves, unwilling to be dragged down by his crusade. Nicky's confession, once seen as a potential shield, now looks increasingly fragile, and whispers spread that she may have altered the truth to protect Victor or preserve the family legacy, a revelation that threatens to implode the Newman household from within. Victor, faced with the possibility that both his wife and his enemy may be culpable, finally confronts Nicky in a brutal, soul-bearing exchange, demanding absolute honesty, because Adam's life hangs in the balance, and Nicky, breaking down, admits that fear and shame may have clouded her memory, that her confession was never meant to kill anyone, but the damage is already done. Jack, reeling from the exposure of his own tactics, refuses to accept defeat, convinced that Adam orchestrated everything, and in a chilling moment, he warns that this isn't over until Adam is permanently removed from the board, a statement that sends shockwaves through those who hear it and raises terrifying questions about how far he's willing to go. As threats mount and tension escalates, another near-miss leaves Adam shaken but alive, proof that the danger hasn't passed, and Victor explodes, confronting Jack with a fury born of terror, accusing him of playing God and demanding an end to the vendetta before someone truly dies, but Jack counters that Adam has already destroyed lives, that mercy now would be a betrayal of justice, and their confrontation leaves both men exposed, stripped of their usual armor, because beneath the power and bravado are two men driven by loss and obsession. The city holds its breath as investigations intensify, alliances crumble, and the line between victim and villain blurs beyond recognition, because every revelation only seems to deepen the mystery of who is truly responsible for pushing this conflict into lethal territory. Adam, exhausted but unbroken, vows that if he survives, he will ensure the full truth comes out, no matter who it destroys, while Victor stands at a crossroads, forced to choose between protecting the woman he loves, stopping the man he hates, and saving the son he's failed too many times before. Jack, isolated and cornered, begins to feel the weight of what he's unleashed, but even as doubt creeps in, he cannot let go of the belief that Adam must pay the ultimate price, and that belief may yet drive him to commit the unforgivable. As the continuation of this deadly saga unfolds, one truth becomes impossible to ignore: this war is no longer about revenge or justice, but about survival, and unless mercy, truth, or fate intervenes, Genoa City may soon witness a tragedy that will haunt everyone involved forever, because when confessions clash with evidence and desperation overrides humanity, the cost is measured not in wins or losses, but in lives shattered beyond repair. The spiral tightens even further as the fallout from Adam's public release of evidence refuses to settle, instead igniting fresh fires that burn through Genoa City with merciless speed, because once the truth begins to leak, it never comes out cleanly, and every fragment that surfaces seems designed to destroy someone new, leaving Adam trapped in a cruel paradox where the very proof meant to save his life may ultimately put him in even greater danger. Investigators descend with relentless intensity, dissecting timelines, financial trails, and private communications, and while Jack Abbott is forced to defend his actions under mounting scrutiny, he remains disturbingly unrepentant, insisting that any lines he crossed were necessary to stop a threat that no one else was brave enough to confront, his conviction so absolute that it terrifies even those who once stood proudly at his side. Victor Newman, watching Jack refuse to bend, realizes with dawning horror that logic and reason may no longer reach his rival, and that means Adam's survival depends not on justice, but on speed, on how quickly Victor can dismantle the machinery Jack has already set in motion before it claims a final victim. Nikki, meanwhile, finds herself suffocating under the weight of her own words, her confession now a living thing that twists and mutates as more facts emerge, and as whispers grow louder that she withheld key details or reshaped events to protect the Newman legacy. Her credibility erodes, leaving her isolated and afraid that her attempt to do the right thing may end with her family irreparably shattered. Adam senses the shift instantly, recognizing that Nikki's weakening position could either clear his name or condemn him forever, and he presses forward despite Victor's warnings, driven by a desperate need to control the narrative before it controls him. Even as every step he takes feels like walking across a minefield blindfolded, Jack's counteroffensive takes on a chilling new form as he quietly pressures those in Adam's orbit, forcing old allies to choose between loyalty and self-preservation, and one by one, Adam watches his support system crumble, each betrayal cutting deeper than the last and reinforcing the brutal truth that survival in Genoa City is a solitary endeavor. Victor responds with a move that shocks everyone, including Adam, as he reaches out to longtime enemies and former rivals, forging fragile alliances in the name of stopping Jack's rampage, a gambit that underscores just how dire the situation has become, because Victor Newman does not compromise unless the alternative is unthinkable. Yet even as Victor maneuvers behind the scenes, Jack escalates publicly, delivering a blistering address that paints Adam as a manipulator whose near-death experiences are nothing more than the consequences of his own dark schemes, a narrative that gains traction among those eager for a villain, and the more Jack speaks, the clearer it becomes that he is preparing the city for an outcome where Adam does not survive. Adam, pushed to the edge, makes another reckless decision, confronting Jack in a raw, unfiltered showdown that explodes with years of resentment, accusations, and mutual hatred, as Adam demands to know how far Jack is willing to go and Jack coldly responds that some men only stop destroying others when they are finally destroyed themselves. A statement so chilling it leaves witnesses shaken and Victor seething with rage. Nikki's world collapses further when new evidence surfaces suggesting that her confession omitted a crucial encounter that could dramatically alter the timeline of events, and when confronted, she breaks down completely, admitting that fear, guilt, and loyalty all influenced her memory, a confession within a confession that threatens to obliterate what little trust remains between her and Victor. Victor, devastated yet resolute, realizes that the truth, whatever it ultimately is, has become secondary to stopping the bloodshed, and he makes the bold decision to offer Jack something he has never offered anyone before. A ceasefire, a chance to walk away without further escalation if Adam is left alive, an offer that stuns those who hear it and underscores the depth of Victor's desperation. Jack's response is devastating in its simplicity. He refuses, declaring that mercy now would be an insult to every betrayal he has endured, and in doing so, he seals his transformation from aggrieved rival to relentless executioner in the eyes of many. The danger becomes terrifyingly real when Adam narrowly avoids another deadly incident, this time unmistakably deliberate, and the evidence points to a chain of actions initiated by Jack's campaign, sending shockwaves through the city and pushing authorities to the brink of intervention. Victor explodes, launching a full-scale effort to expose Jack's methods, unleashing information that threatens to dismantle Abbott influence entirely, and for the first time, Jack appears rattled, realizing that his vendetta may cost him everything he has spent his life building. Yet even cornered, Jack does not relent, driven by a belief that if Adam survives, the cycle of destruction will never end, and that belief propels him forward with terrifying resolve. Adam, bruised but alive, confronts the reality that his survival has become a catalyst for chaos, and in a rare moment of vulnerability, he questions whether exposing the full truth is worth the carnage it's causing. A doubt that haunts him even as danger stalks his every step. Nikki, watching her family fracture, pleads with Adam to stop escalating, admitting her mistakes and begging him to consider the cost, but Adam counters that silence nearly killed him, and he refuses to be buried to protect anyone else's secrets. The city teeters on the brink as investigations intensify, arrests loom, and reputation